Inside Rikers Island, the brutal secrets they tried to hide. Blood on the floor. The first thing Detective Raymond Cole noticed when he stepped through the gates of Rikers Island wasn't the noise, though the shouting from the tiers rattled down the concrete halls like loose chains. It wasn't the smell, though the stench of sweat, bleach, and despair clung to everything like a second skin. It was the silence that fell when the inmates realized he wasn't a guard. "Detective," the sergeant escorting him muttered, "you'll get used to that." Cole didn't answer. His eyes had already fixed on the chalky smear ahead, a rectangle outlined on the mess hall floor where the night before an inmate had died screaming. The official report said it was a fight over a tray of food. The photographs told another story. The man had been beaten until bone showed through his cheek, then slashed open with something sharp enough to leave cuts as clean as glass. But what stood out most to Cole wasn't the violence. It was the position of the body, laid out deliberately in the center of the hall, arms folded, eyes open. Displayed. The inmate's name was Jamil Harris, 32 years old, awaiting trial for burglary. No gang ties listed. No disciplinary write-ups. A model prisoner, at least on paper. But his body told a different truth. His ribs had been broken days earlier, his knuckles shredded as if he'd fought someone no one bothered to document. Cole crouched near the blood-stained grout. He noticed something the cleanup crew had missed: faint scrawl in crimson across the tile, smeared by a boot print but still legible. 2 words. "No mercy." The sergeant shifted uncomfortably. "Gang tack," he said quickly. "They do it to scare the others." Cole didn't believe it. Not yet. By noon, word of Jamil's death had rippled through every tier. Inmates shouted questions through bars. Some swore they saw officers leave the hall before the fight started. Others whispered about a new crew on the island, one that didn't answer to the Bloods, Crips, or Trinitarios. A crew that wasn't even inmates at all. "They call it the program," one inmate told Cole through the bars, his voice low, eyes darting toward the guards. "It ain't gangs running the show no more. It's them." "Who's them?" Cole pressed. The inmate leaned so close his breath fogged the steel. "COs, sergeants. The ones supposed to keep order. They pick who eats, who sleeps, who bleeds. They get paid to look the other way, or to make sure you don't wake up." Harris crossed them. "That's why he's gone." Before Cole could ask more, the inmate stepped back and shouted for water, pretending the conversation never happened. In the warden's office, Captain Loretta Mann handed Cole a stack of files, her nails clicking against the manila covers. "You detectives come in here every few years," she said. "Someone dies, you sniff around, and then you leave. This island swallows cases, detective. You want to know the truth?" Harris was weak. "Weak men don't last here." Cole flipped the file open. Harris's disciplinary record was blank. His visitor logs showed only his mother once a month. His commissary purchases were nothing but ramen and instant coffee. Weak didn't explain the precision of his killing. "Who was on duty?" Cole asked. Mann's jaw tightened. 3 officers. All good men. Don't insult them by implying otherwise. Then show me the footage. She hesitated. Camera malfunction. Power surge knocked the feed out. Cole had heard it all before. Malfunctions. Power surges. Dead zones. Rikers was a graveyard of evidence, and the people who ran it knew how to bury their sins deep. That night, Cole stayed in the island's tiny guest office, poring over files by the glow of a desk lamp. He was halfway through Harris's intake records when his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Static crackled, then a voice rasped through. "Detective, it wasn't supposed to be him." Cole sat up straighter. "Who is this?" "Locker. Storage Queens. Keys taped under the 3rd sink in C-block showers. 2 o'clock. Don't trust anyone in uniform." The line went dead. Cole's pulse quickened. An inmate couldn't just call him directly. This was inside knowledge. And if what the voice said was true, Harris wasn't even the intended victim. He barely had time to process before a loud crash echoed in the corridor. Boots hammered against tile. A voice shouted, "Medical emergency, C-block." Cole bolted from the office, heart racing. C-block was chaos. Officers flooded the hall, flashlights cutting through darkness. The power was out. Inmates screamed through bars, banging fists against steel. Cole forced his way to the showers, pushing past a guard who tried to block him. On the wet tile floor, another body lay sprawled, water still hissing from broken pipes overhead. This one wasn't staged. His throat had been cut, jagged and brutal. Blood pooled down the drain, staining the spray a dull pink. It wasn't an inmate. It was an officer. Cole crouched, adrenaline roaring. The man's badge read Rodriguez. His service pistol was gone. His eyes, wide open, still carried shock. And there, just as the caller promised, beneath the third sink, a piece of black tape peeled loose. Cole pried it free with trembling fingers. A brass key clinked into his palm. Numbered, Locker 2127. He slipped it into his pocket as officers swarmed. A hand clamped on his shoulder. Captain Mann, her face pale, eyes sharp. "You don't belong here tonight," she hissed. Cole looked into her eyes and saw it. Fear, not anger. She knew exactly what was happening. And she wanted him gone before he found the rest. Cole spent the next hour in his car outside the gates, hands gripping the wheel, rain hammering the windshield. He couldn't shake the image of Rodriguez's body bleeding out under the hiss of water. An officer dead inside Rikers meant lines had been crossed. Whatever the program was, it had teeth sharp enough to chew through its own. At 2 a.m. he drove into Queens. The storage facility was nearly empty, rows of corrugated steel doors glowing under buzzing lights. Locker 2127 waited near the back. The brass key slid in easily. Inside was a single box taped shut. He ripped it open and found what Harris must have died for. Stacks of paper, ledgers, receipts, lists of names. Officers, gang reps, lawyers. Payment amounts scribbled in ink. Dates matching violent incidents swept under the rug. And at the top of every page, scrawled like a signature, "No mercy." Cole felt his blood chill. This wasn't random. This was organized. And it was bigger than Rikers. As he stuffed the papers back, his phone buzzed again. Another unknown text. "Next is you." Cole sat there in the humming dark, the key cold in his fist, realizing he had just stepped into something far larger than a prison murder. Jamil Harris wasn't just killed. He was silenced. And Rikers Island had only begun to show him its brutal secrets. The program. Detective Raymond Cole barely slept after leaving the storage facility. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Harris's body laid out on the mess hall floor, and "No mercy" scrawled in blood, and Rodriguez bleeding under the showers, his badge glinting in the water. Rikers wasn't just broken. It was alive, a machine with gears made of fear, corruption, and secrets. By dawn, Cole was back in the precinct, poring over the files he had taken. They weren't just ledgers, they were maps. Names leapt from the pages. Officers he'd passed in hallways, inmates he'd read about in reports, attorneys with reputations for making charges disappear. Next to each, amounts in cash. Payoffs. Protection. Transfers. Even overtime slips marked with stars. Quiet rewards for looking the other way. But what chilled Cole most was the heading stamped across multiple sheets in block letters. The program. This wasn't a gang. It wasn't even just dirty officers. It was a system, a shadow government inside Rikers. And Harris, with his clean record and quiet nature, must have stumbled too close to its core. By mid-morning, Cole requested a sit-down with Warden Sue. She wasn't in her office. "Family emergency," her secretary said stiffly, eyes avoiding his. So Cole went to Captain Mann instead. She received him with a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "You shouldn't be digging where you don't belong," she said before he even opened his mouth. "Harris didn't die in a fight," Cole replied. "He was executed. Rodriguez wasn't random either. Someone wanted him gone. And now I've got evidence tying your officers to something called the program. Care to explain?" Mann's jaw worked, but no words came. Finally she said, "Detective, if you value your career and your life, you'll burn those papers and walk away. You're not fighting criminals here. You're fighting an institution that knows how to erase people." She leaned closer, her perfume sharp under the fluorescent lights. "Ask yourself this. Why do you think every investigation into Rikers dies in paperwork? Why do you think people vanish from witness lists? Because the program decides what the truth is. And they've already decided you don't belong." Cole stood. "I don't scare easy. You will." Back in the blocks, Cole worked angles. He spoke to inmates, never in groups, always in whispers through the bars. Most refused to talk. Some just laughed bitterly. But one, a wiry man with tired eyes known as Big Nate, leaned forward and whispered, "The program runs on silence. Break that, you're dead." "Then how do I stop it?" Cole asked. "You don't. Best you can do is survive it." Harris thought he could be clever. He kept notes. Notes about who ran the smuggling through the laundry tunnels, who moved contraband through medical supply runs, who fixed fights in the yard so they looked random. He wrote it all down. That's why they put him on the floor with those words. Cole's pulse quickened. Where are his notes now? Big Nate's lips curled. "If you're holding papers, detective, then you've got them. And if you've got them, you're already marked. That night, Cole drove to Queens again. He needed to dig deeper into the ledgers. But as he approached his apartment, he felt it, the prickling on his neck, the sense of being followed. He pulled into the lot, headlights sweeping across rows of parked cars. A silver sedan sat idling 2 spaces away, windows dark. When he turned off his engine, theirs roared to life. The car rolled past him slowly, and though the tinted glass revealed nothing, he knew. The program was watching. He didn't sleep inside that night. Instead, he drove until the city blurred, ending up in a 24-hour diner on the edge of Brooklyn. With a cup of coffee gone cold, he flipped through Harris's ledgers again. And there, on the final page, scrawled in shaky hand, was a date and time. Yard, November 17th, 2200 hours. That was tomorrow night. The next day, Cole arranged to walk the yard with a corrections escort. The officer assigned was young, nervous, clearly green. "You don't want to be here after dark," the officer muttered as they entered the yard. "Bad things happen in the shadows." Cole didn't answer. He scanned the cracked basketball courts, the ragged benches, the watchtowers looming above. The yard was empty now, but in his mind he could already see it. Harris or someone else, meeting with an inmate, trading information too valuable to ignore. He noted every blind spot the towers couldn't see, every patch of shadow where a camera would miss a body dropping. He was mapping the battlefield. That evening, Cole's phone buzzed again. Unknown number. A text. Locker wasn't the only place. Check the drain in the showers. Tonight. Cole knew it was a trap. But he also knew he had no choice. At midnight, he returned to C Block. The showers were dark, water dripping steadily from rusted pipes. The tiles still carried faint stains from Rodriguez's death. Cole crouched by the drain, pried it open with a penknife. Inside was a plastic bag, slimy with mildew. He pulled it free, wiped it off. Inside the bag was a flash drive. His chest tightened. Proof. Maybe video. Maybe the one thing that could blow the program wide open. But as he slipped it into his pocket, a voice behind him said, "Detective." He spun. Captain Mann stood at the doorway, her sidearm drawn. Behind her, 2 masked officers blocked the exit. "I warned you," Mann said softly. "You don't get it, do you? Harris wasn't the first. Rodriguez wasn't the first. They won't be the last. The program doesn't allow mistakes. And you," she gestured with the gun, "you're a mistake." Cole's heart hammered. "So you're in it?" Mann's smile was grim. "I am the program. And now, detective, you're going to disappear like the rest." The masked officers advanced. Cole braced himself, mind racing. The flash drive in his pocket suddenly felt like the heaviest thing he'd ever carried. And he knew in that moment he had less than 60 seconds to decide if he would survive the night. No mercy. Captain Loretta Mann's voice didn't echo in the tiled room. It landed flat, like wet cloth. "You're going to disappear now," she said, gun leveled, shoulders square. Behind her, 2 masked officers fanned out, boots squeaking on the slick floor. Water dripped from a snapped pipe in patient beats. The steam made everything soft at the edges like a bad memory. Raymond Cole lifted his palms, buying seconds. The flash drive in his pocket felt like a hot coin. "If this is the program," he said, "why are you doing it in the dark?" Mann's mouth twitched. "Because light attracts witnesses." Cole took half a step toward the third sink. "Then you won't mind if I wash my hands." The closest masked officer moved to shove him back. Cole pivoted, shoulder-checking the man into the stall divider. At the same time he slammed his palm up into the emergency stop bar on the ceiling sprinkler. The valve snapped. Pressure screamed. Water detonated from the broken head in a silver cone. The room turned to rain. The second masked officer slipped. The first crashed into him, both arms pinwheeling. Mann flinched but kept the muzzle steady as Cole dove low, sliding across the flooded tile toward the drain he'd pried open minutes before. He jammed the flash drive into the P-trap, felt plastic bite, and let the water take care of concealment. Then he rolled, the world a blur of boots and spray, as Mann's first shot cratered tile inches from his ear. "Down," she shouted. "Both of you, down." The masked men regained their feet. One drew a baton, the other his taser. Cole crabbed between their legs, yanked the taser wrist off balance. Electricity snapped wide and kissed a pipe. The baton came down. He caught it on his forearm, white pain, copper in his mouth, and shoved backward into the open stall. Mann stepped in, patient as a metronome, lining up the second shot. Her radio crackled. "Yard disturbance, south fence, yard disturbance." She didn't look away. "Deal with it." Cole kicked the stall door hard. It slammed into the baton officer's knee. He howled, buckled. Cole ripped the baton free and hurled it at Man. She ducked. The baton clanged off tile and skittered under a bench. The second masked officer lunged. Cole met him with the door again. The hinge screamed. The man went through it into the next stall, took a shower rod to the shoulder and stayed there, groaning. Man fired once more. The round took the mirror behind Cole, exploding his reflection into a glitter of knives. Slivers peppered his face and neck. He dropped, crawled, felt hands close on his ankle, kicked loose and burst through the steam and water toward the hall. Stop him. Man's voice braided rage and fear. Cole ran blind, one hand skimming the tile for purchase, the other clamped to his ribs. The corridor outside was darker than it should have been. The outage from earlier still pinched the lights. He rounded the corner and slid to a stop. A laundry cart squatted by the service door like a waiting animal, canvas sides grimy, one wheel squealing. He dove in, dragging the lid shut over his head just as the door banged open behind him. Boots pounded past. Man's voice faded toward the far end of the corridor. Seal the north exit. If he reaches the fence. Cole lay in bleach-stinking darkness, heart clubbing his ribs. He fished in his pocket for the brass locker key, then remembered the drive wasn't there anymore and let the key go. Instinct said move. He wriggled to the bottom seam of the cart, found the broken stitch in the canvas. Someone had already slit it for smuggling, and burrowed through until his fingers touched cold concrete. He slid out under the cart and into the service tunnel, low and damp, the air humming with the building's breath. Preacher's words came back unbidden. You ever follow a laundry cart? They go places nobody writes down. He crawled 30 feet on busted elbows, turned where the air smelled like detergent, then like metal, then like the river. A grate above him leaked a thread of night. When he pushed it, it moved. He eased the grate aside and emerged in the shadow of the south fence, close enough to hear the outer yard's rain hitting chain link in sheets. Close enough to see, through the diamonds of wire, a knot of officers and inmates at the basketball court like storm-pressed birds. Not a riot, too contained. A staged scuffle. A distraction. For whom? For what? For the yard meeting on Harris's calendar. Yard, November 17th, 2200 hours. Cole checked his watch. 21:52. Lightning spidered somewhere over the river, flattening the yard into flash photograph clarity. He recognized Big Nate by the slouch and the wary head tilt. He recognized the CO flanking him too, the young green one from the day circuit. Nate and the kid were walking a route that kept them in blind wedges between cameras. Anyone who didn't know the angles would think it was random. Cole swallowed iron and pain and slid along the wall to a maintenance door, keyed open by an old badge magnet that shouldn't still work and miraculously did. He came out near the tool shed where mowers went to die. He stayed in the shed's shadow until a pair of officers passed, heads bent over a phone. Then he crossed the distance to the court like a man who belonged there. Nate, he said conversationally as if asking for a light. Walk with me. The young officer stiffened. Nate didn't. He cocked his head. You look like something the drain coughed up, detective. Where do they hand off? Cole asked. This meeting, whose is it? Nate licked rain from his lip. People who sign checks never touch the cash. They delegate. Names? You've got yours. He flicked his gaze toward the admin wing. Warden Sue. Captain Mann. After that it gets municipal. Unions? Cole said. Vendors? Lawyers? Nate's laugh had no humor. All three with a side of campaign finance. The young officer, nameplate Reyes, shifted from foot to foot. He wasn't looking at Cole. He was looking at the tower, counting breaths. Cole followed his gaze. In the nearest watch post, a silhouette turned away, bending for something on the floor. A pattern. A code. The tower was looking elsewhere by request. How many people do you owe favors to tonight, Reyes? Cole asked softly. Reyes swallowed. Just one, he said without meeting Cole's eyes. You chose wrong, Cole said and felt sorry as he said it. The court lights blinked. Twice. Nate's shoulders went loose. Showtime. From the admin wing, three figures approached with the deliberate casualness of people who never hurry. Man now in a rain hood, Warden Sue, umbrella tilted just so, and a third man in a suit that didn't mind getting wet. He carried a slim metal case handcuffed to his wrist. Even at distance, Cole could see he was the kind of man who'd had others teach him how to smile for cameras. He didn't smile now. Nate took a small step away from Cole, not betrayal exactly, more like stage direction. You wanted to see it, he said. Here's seeing. Sue and the suit stopped inside the shadow of the bleachers, out of the tower's direct line. Man held position just beyond them, guarding the angle. 2 inmates were marched forward from opposite sides of the court by officers who never looked at each other. One of the inmates was Big Nate's opposite number in the yard economy, a short man with quick eyes and a Trinitario's dagger shaved into his hairline. The other was unfamiliar, soft around the jaw, very aware of his hands, like he'd spent years not getting them dirty. The suit clicked open the case. Sue's umbrella drifted to give him cover. Inside the case, plastic-wrapped stacks did not pretend to be anything but money. The soft-jawed inmate reached automatically. Man's voice cut his reach in half. Not yet. Sue spoke for the first time, voice pitched low. Ground rules. You keep the phones quiet. We open doors. You send us a problem, we make it look like gravity. You send us a witness, we put him in a place where witnesses go to forget names. The soft-jawed inmate nodded too fast. The dagger-haired man just watched Sue like she was a crooked dealer that you play until the deck starts bleeding. Cole had his phone in his pocket in recording mode and knew, in the same beat, that a recording inside these walls was an obituary. He needed words. He needed someone to say the thing you aren't supposed to say. He stepped out of the shed's shadow. Man saw him first. For a second her face showed the naked shock of seeing a ghost stand up. Then the gun came up again, smooth and inevitable as rain. Easy, Cole said, hands high, voice threading its own path. You still want me to disappear in a shower? Or do you want to finish with an audience? Sue's gaze moved from Cole to Man to the suit. She was measuring not risk but optics. The suit solved the math by taking a step toward Cole and speaking with bored irritation. Detective, he said like a bartender saying last call. Drop whatever you think you have. This place doesn't operate on evidence. It operates on narrative. Ours is older than you. Your narrative has a name, Cole said. The program. The suit almost smiled. Brands are for voters. We're a budget line item. He turned his wrist with a delicate flare, showing the handcuff on the case. Deliverables for Q4, he said to Sue. Do hurry. And just like that, Captain Man wasn't aimed at Cole anymore. She was aimed at Reyes. Officer, she said. Hand him your radio. Reyes froze. In that instant Cole understood the favor Reyes owed. He had cleared the camera wedge for this deal. If Cole spoke now, he'd hang the kid in the same noose. He chose a different rope. Loretta, he said, using Man's first name the way you use a tourniquet. How many bodies before you get to stop kneeling to men like him? Man didn't blink. All of them. Something in Cole that should have been tired decided not to be. Harris wrote no mercy in his blood because you said it first, he said. It's not a creed. It's a memo. The suit sighed. Shoot him and stop embarrassing yourselves. Sue's umbrella tipped, angle widening as if to keep the blood off her shoes. Nate moved. He didn't rush, he sidestepped like a dancer, and in the doing knocked his opposite number forward into Man's line of fire. Man checked herself, gun twitching to the right. In the fractional stutter, Cole grabbed Reyes by the collar and yanked him down. Stay, he hissed and flung Reyes's radio toward the fence. It hit the chain link and jammed the transmit button. The yard erupted in its own voice. Yard, bleachers, shots. Man fired. The bullet took the radio in a shower of sparks. The damage was done. Tower stirred. Sirens hiccuped awake. The suit's cool boiled off his face. He snapped his wrist, trying to yank the case free of the cuff. Sue reached for the chain with her spare hand, irritated, like a hostess adjusting a table setting. Cole ran at the thing everyone else had ignored, the on-court floodlight control. He slapped the manual test switch. The lights cut, plunging the yard into that ugly half-dark where everything looks closer and worse. He whirled back toward the bleachers and saw shapes crash into each other. Man tackling the suit to get the case, Sue shoved sideways by the dagger-haired inmate who, to his credit or damnation, saw an opportunity and took it. Nate's hand found Cole's elbow, hard, guiding. This way. They didn't sprint. Sprinting draws bullets. They moved fast and low along the fence, bleachers on their left, tower shadow on their right. Behind them, a shot barked. 1, 2, and then the metallic shriek of the outer gate trying to close on nothing. Issue sirens, real not staged, bit the air coming up the causeway. At the corner of the fence, Nate stopped. He pressed something into Cole's palm, cold, slick plastic. The flash drive. Not the one from the drain. This one had a strip of blue tape around it and an inked label in tiny careful letters. Rodriguez Camera. You, Cole began. Nate's smile was tired and not unkind. I read under doors, he said. Somebody had to save one thing. Come with me, Cole said. Witness protection. Nate's gaze moved to the yard. This is my planet, detective. Planets don't get witness protection. Reyes stumbled up, pale and furious with himself. What do I do? He gasped. Tell the truth, Cole said. Reyes barked out something like a laugh. That's not a thing here. Cole clapped him once on the shoulder. Make it one. Towers snapped awake. Floods roared back to full. ESU poured through the inner gate in a gray tide, faces hard with protocol. On the court, man was on one knee, gun out, bleeding from the lip. Sue stood composed, umbrella nowhere, hair perfect again as if the rain understood rank. The suit was gone, the case with him. Later, the report would say 2 warning shots were fired, no injuries to staff, 1 inmate treated for a laceration from contact with bleacher hardware. Later, the video would show pixelated motion and lags, and someone would write signal interference in neat block letters that looked a lot like lies. But in the moment, Cole did the thing that still counted. He walked toward the storm instead of away. He let ESU put him on his knees with his hands on his head. He let man tell a story about a rogue detective interfering with a controlled operation. He let Sue say nothing, which was always worse. He also let Reyes stand up and speak in a voice that shook. Captain ordered me to disable camera 6. I did. I wish I hadn't. There was an audible creak in the air, like an old structure adjusting. You'll lose your job, man hissed at Reyes. Reyes didn't look at her. Maybe, he said. Maybe I'll keep my name. Cole didn't see the suit again that night. He didn't see the money case until a month later, in a photo buried on page B12 of a paper that had already moved on. It sat on a conference table in a city hall back room, half open, empty, the handcuff dangling like a punchline. What he saw, what mattered, was what the Rodriguez drive showed when he and an ADA with a taste for trouble watched it 2 days later in a windowless room. Showers, steam, and Captain Man saying very clearly, "No mercy," before a shape stepped into the frame that no one had named out loud until that second. Warden Sue, eyes flat as glass, telling Rodriguez, "Move him," and a third voice, off-camera and expensive, saying, "If he resists, finish." Names. Voices. A chain, not of command but of appetite. The rest came. Not enough. Some were swaps. A sergeant you could spare for a deputy commissioner you couldn't. Man went in cuffs, chin high, and discovered what metal feels like on a cold wrist. Sue went on leave, then into retirement, then into a gated community upstate that had nicer fences. The suit vanished, absorbed into the city like a small crime in a big budget. Big Nate didn't disappear. He kept walking his slow orbit of the yard, eyes open, head tilted, reading under doors. Cole slept badly. When he did, he kept hearing water hitting tile in a steady, endless rhythm, and a voice saying brands are for voters. 2 weeks after the yard, a plain white envelope waited on Cole's apartment doormat. No stamp. No return. Inside, a single photo, the mess hall, mopped and bright, the rectangle of Jamil Harris's body place scrubbed to a paler shine. In the lower corner, 3 block letters, stamped in green ink as neat as a budget line. No mercy. Or something else entirely, a vendor, a shell, a clause. On the back, in tiny careful handwriting, a date and time. Budget hearing, December 3rd, 10 o'clock. Cole stood there with his door still open, hallway humming, the city at the window trying to pretend it wasn't winter. He looked at the photo until the green bled into the white. Rikers Island hadn't run out of secrets. It had quarterly reports. He slid the photo into a folder with the Rodriguez drive, the ledgers, a single page torn from Harris's notebook where the heading "No Mercy" had started as a line of ink and become an indictment. He put on his coat. When the elevator took too long, he took the stairs. Outside, the river moved like something alive. It always had. You could drown in it or you could learn its currents. Tonight it felt like a road. Cole walked toward it. Not because he knew the way. Because the island had taught him the only truth that counted. When a system says no mercy, the only response is no silence.